To get more insight on the situation, we can speak now to founder of the International Network for Aid, Relief and Assistance, Arwa Damon. And thanks so much for joining us, as always, Arwa. I mean, we're looking at the pictures there, but you have contact directly with Palestinians inside Gaza. What's the latest you're hearing from them?
Well, what we understand now from both speaking to people inside Gaza, but also from various other reporting, is that this group of Palestinians were making their way down to one of the distribution points early in the morning. You have to remember that they have to walk for hours to be able to get to the point. And so it seems like this happened at some point in the middle of the night, in the dark. And what numerous eyewitnesses are saying is that they were fired on both by a tank and by a quadcopter. But what this really goes to underscore and show is exactly why the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's distribution mechanism quite simply does not work. And that is because you cannot have a handful of hubs that are trying to feed over 2 million starving people. There is going to be chaos. There is going to be massive difficulties in trying to crowd control, and there is not going to be a humane or dignified or even successful distribution of humanitarian aid. There's a reason why aid organizations know what they're doing. There's a reason why aid organizations in Gaza, for example, have more than 400 distribution points set up across all of the Gaza Strip, or why some organizations such as mine deliver directly to the shelter and the communities that we serve. It is absolutely absurd that the US and Israel have gone for this sort of alternative distribution mechanism when there already is a system in place that has been proven to work.
And as a result, because this is the only aid distribution that Israel is allowing into the Gaza Strip, the reality for all the Palestinians, they're simply not getting any aid at all still, right?
A lot of them are not. I mean, we've all seen the chaotic scenes of, mobs trying to rush the aid that has come into these distribution hubs set up by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And if you're lucky, you're able to grab a food parcel. But then if you manage to get that back to your tent or wherever it is that you've been displaced to, what are you exactly supposed to be cooking it with? Look, even an organization like the World Central Kitchen that has the capacity to cook up hundreds of thousands of meals a day has not been permitted to bring in its supplies. The little bit of flour that has been permitted to enter for distribution by the UN has only been given permission to be delivered straight to the bakeries. And of course, then you have the issue of massive mobs collecting at the bakeries. What we are seeing, and as Israel very clearly stated when it broke the ceasefire, that it was going to be implementing a policy of starvation, is right now we have something of a policy of scarcity. And that scarcity is going to continue to lead to severe levels of hunger. It is not going to pull the population back from the brink of famine. And it's really not going to do anything except for prolong the suffering and misery of those who are trying to survive in Gaza.
So week by week, Arwa, we're seeing the ongoing dire situation, the hellish situation in Gaza, and still no reaction from the international community. There's nobody coming to help the NGOs, to help organizations like your own.
No, there isn't. And the international community really, despite the fact that we are seeing sort of a growing slight cacophony of voices from Israel's allies themselves, such as, Canada, and other Western nations. The reality is that as long as the US continues to stand firmly by Israel, nothing is really going to change on the ground. No other country has the level of leverage that the US has over Israel, and no other country can really put the pressure that is needed on Israel. We're also hearing increasing levels of criticism from former senior Israeli officials themselves about what is happening. We're seeing growing demonstrations in Israel with Israelis themselves really fed up and very frustrated with their government's inability to bring the hostages home and negotiate some sort of a deal that is going to ensure that. The ceasefire talks right now are at something of an impasse, to put it lightly, with, in a nutshell, Hamas on the one hand wanting to see some sort of a deal that is going to, at the very least, guarantee or have the US guarantee a permanent ceasefire, and Israel wants a deal that would allow it to resume bombing after 60 days.
I mean, looking at that international reaction on a nation level, but is there anything, Arwa, that the average human being outside of Gaza can do to have any impact?
I mean, one would like to believe that, the average person has a voice and that a collection of voices would actually mean something. And we have been seeing an increasing number of people really begin to sort of speak out and advocate for an end to all of this. And I would say, the best thing to do is to support organizations that are working on the ground in Gaza, support those that are working, with Palestinian communities outside of Gaza, and to keep speaking out and demanding an end to all of this.
And Arwa, where do you see things going from here? I mean, it's been ongoing for so long. You have constant contact with, again, people in Gaza. I mean, yeah, where does this go from here?
I wish I had a positive answer for that. I wish I had an optimistic answer for that. It's hard to see this current trajectory diverging from anything that looks other than either the complete and total annihilation of the population or its forced displacement into either an ever-shrinking territory in Gaza or even out of Gaza itself. Look, if the Trump administration and Netanyahu have their way, they would have kicked all of the Gazans out of Gaza and to neighboring Egypt or Jordan and set up that absolutely ridiculous, Trump Gaza plan with, 5-star resorts and casinos being built along the Strip's shoreline. It's really going to take a massive effort on countries at this stage who not necessarily are able to pressure Israel, but who might actually be able to pressure the United States. But that was a tall order even under the Biden administration, and is an even taller order right now under the Trump administration, given how cozy Trump and Netanyahu appear to be at this stage.
Arwa Damon, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us once again here on France 24. Your time very much appreciated. Arwa Damon there, the founder of the International Network for Aid, Relief and Assistance.